story of your life, Oliver Connolly.
I am running a bit late. Yeah. I think we've gone live now, Piers, so watch your P's and Q's. I'll do my intro. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm sorry I'm late, folks. It's been one of those days. And you know what? I smelt a bit and I needed a quick wash. Gone live now, Piers, so watch your P's and Q's. Right. Oh, blimey. I'll tell you what. Here we go. Here we go. Yep. This is it. This is it. Right. Let's get into it. Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Brexit. It's been a long day, but we're holding democracy to account. We're fighting for self-determination and we're exposing plutocracy. I'm Ollie Connolly. Thanks for turning up. And today's show, Henry's Catch. So what does that mean for UKIP and for Brexit? And what about Affinity, JRE's new party? I kind of thought we should be talking about unity in this show. But I suspect we'll also be talking about the Bolton Wanderers. We've got Reese here, Reese Coombs of BBC Question Time fame. Our stringer and Kipper Central Gov, Reese Coombs. And we got Piers. Piers too. Piers Garnham. In case you get bored. In case you get bored. And you. Call in, yeah? And we'll see you in the comments. So get stuck in the comments. And call. Ollie Connolly on Skype. We got chickens. Please, share the show. Let folks know we're talking, we're watching, we're thinking, we're active. Oh, yeah, good, yeah. Piers.
Yes.
Hello, mate. How are you? How's your day?
Yeah. I'm okay. I'm all right. We haven't done this in a while, have we? I mean, like,
we haven't.
It's been a while since I've been on your show. You've been interviewing all kinds.
You
of
were on last week.
Bods.
You were on last week. You came on
mate?
last week, mate. You were on last week. You were telling us all about aliens last week, and some people were wondering what on earth was going on. But tonight we're. But tonight we're going to be talking.
Freak all your guests out.
Oh man, I'll tell you. You had a lot of support in the comments. Actually, it was fascinating. But tonight we're going to be talking about a different layer of the onion, and much closer to home. And I need to get Reese in on this call as well. But tell me, Piers. Oh, Reese, you're there. Okay. When did we last have a quiet news day?
1963, I think.
I'll tell you, it's at the moment, it really is, it's bonkers, the stuff going on. I'm in Spain. I was in Palma de Mallorca last night. There was a demonstration going on in front of the Ayuntamiento, in front of the town hall, with Catalans, with Catalan sympathizers. Historically, the Balearic Islands are Catalan, Aragonese, and there is a distinct sympathy there, and there must have been about 1,000 people in that square, with their flags predominantly saying no violence, yeah. And there I only saw about, and this is no exaggeration, I saw 6 or maybe 8 people who were obviously demonstrating for Spain, for unity, for you know, the union. And that's an incredible ratio, Reese, I know you posted about this on KIP Essential today. It's quite incredible what's going on in Spain at the moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, what you're seeing is the people, yet again, as we're seeing in America, in Britain, across the world, you're seeing the people fed up at their government, fed up at some sort of what they see as a multinational government controlling aspects of their state where it shouldn't be, like in Brexit. And I mean, obviously, Catalonia isn't at the moment technically a nation, but the people feel like they're not part of Spain. They feel
Catalonia,
like they're a separate entity. And I think it's fascinating to see how it's all unfolding and how, just like the EU, the Spanish state is using all the powers at its disposal to halt democracy.
Rubber bullets, Piers.
It's madness. It's completely mad, isn't it? I mean, you know, I've got so many friends on Facebook that are kind of fervent Ramonas, you know, and you know, no matter how much logic you chuck at them, they just absolutely point blank refuse to accept that there's anything wrong with the EU, and that you know, as an ideology, it's essential that we stay in and be a part of it. I mean, do they not see what's going on before their very eyes? I mean, this is what gets me. I cannot understand why people still buy into the ideology of the EU. It is just an ideology. It's nonsense. It's not even a true ideology. It's completely false. It's designed as already suggested to be a sort of corporate takeover. You know, which is what Reese was alluding to. All our politicians are in the pockets of giant corporations now. They're all paid vast sums by lobbyists to turn a blind eye or get fully involved, and it's just a racket. It's a corporatocracy. You know, it's a cronyistic, a capitalist corporatocracy, and they're all in the club. They're all on the payroll. They all make millions from it, and of course, none of them want it to change because they're all getting fabulously rich. I was amused to see that George Osborne's family business has suffered as a result of you know, what's been going on with, you know.
Really? Remind us, Piers. Is that something to do with windmills, or what is their deal again? Just out of interest, as an aside.
I don't know. It was just a headline that I
right.
had to sort of catch.
I think it's some energy thing, but maybe that's anyway. Carry on. Yeah, Reece,
no,
I mean, he's right, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, but okay. Let's bring this up to date. This weekend, UKIP. Well, Friday. Now, what's the fallout, Reece? What's going on?
Well, I mean, generally speaking, people are very happy. I've spoken to very few people who don't like Bolton, very few people who are unenthusiastic about the future. Obviously, the majority of people didn't support him, but I think generally a lot of JRE supporters, even a lot of Anne supporters, people from all walks of the party, they're thinking, well, here's a man from his speech who clearly is in sync with my views and is in sync with the public's views. And of course, there are some fringes who don't agree with him, who might not like him as leader, and there are some who have left. But generally speaking, people are very optimistic. And I think at first there's a bit of caution, a bit of tension, but just after he gave his speech, that moment, that was pure enthusiasm. There's no other way of summing it up.
Is Gawain Towler still doing the press side for UKIP?
As far as I'm aware, he is at the moment, but obviously Henry might well make changes to that. As far as I'm aware, Gawain is, you know, he's still
on board. Cool. No, I know Gawain. I know him personally. He's a nice guy. Cool. No, I think it'd be good if he stayed on board, and if Henry uses him, I'm sure he will.
I think I'm fairly sure that the two get along well, so I can.
Exactly. Well,
Piers,
absolutely.
You should look at your comments. You should look at the comments on the show, mate, because and you, Reece. Piers, you've got some fans. People like you, apparently. I don't know why, but anyway. Yes, sorry. Carry on. You were saying yes. You know these folks, right? Okay.
No. I just happen to know Gawain. That's all. You know, I mean,
What about the Bolton? What about the Bolton Wanderers, Reece? I mean, we've now got this break-off party by the sounds of it, Affinity. John Rhys Evans has defected today. Is that correct?
I think John Rhys Evans is just about the only man on the planet who knows, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
There's been a few mixed reports from different people. Some people have said he's still a member. Some people have said he's still a supporter but not a member. Some people have said he's moved to Affinity. Some people have said he's leading Affinity. I think my take on it, I'm guessing, and this is pure guesswork, is that he's not a member of any party, but that he's probably going to vote for Affinity, but will still kind of be a vocal supporter of UKIP. But I mean, I really don't know what to make of it, because he's not given an announcement. The only announcements we've heard are from people around him or people who claim to have spoken to him. But
what about,
you know,
I've got this newmediacentral.net open. Let me see if I can put it up. Basically, they're saying exclusive: John Rhys-Evans quits UK Independence Party, will now front new political party. Torquay, UK. John Rhys-Evans has left the UK Independence Party in order to help front a new party with what he calls a massive engagement and outreach program. The new party, known as Affinity, was registered with the Electoral Commission last night, soon after Rhys-Evans came forth in the UKIP. Okay.
Well, I mean, generally speaking, as long as I can remember actually having heard of John Rhys-Evans, he's made every single announcement to do with anything at all via his Facebook page or his Facebook profile.
Right.
So that doesn't mean to say this report isn't true. I wouldn't want to accuse them of lying, but at the same time, I do think if John were to make an announcement like that, it would be via his Facebook page. So I'm thinking that I think, I might be wrong, the quotes that they've used on that report are from the Affinity website rather than from John. And of course, all we've heard is where John did his Facebook post, he put a link to the Affinity website saying, for those interested in direct democracy, here's one party you might be interested in, and then he gave a link to another as well as UKIP. So I think he's toying with a few parties, and he actually admitted the person that set up Affinity did so last year, and it's John's friend rather than John himself. So I think there's a good chance John's going to be involved with Affinity, but I don't think he's leading it.
Okay, this party Affinities does sound quite interesting, doesn't it? I have to say. I mean, I'm only saying this because, look, I just looked at what they say on their site, and they've kind of got they've got a holding page by the looks of it called reboot2020.com, and they've got an about us on that with some of what is included in what they call smart democracy, and then they go on to talk about other primary areas of concern. And I'll tell you, they've got some very interesting ideas here. They've got things like Your Bank, a new national bank that will pay 10% interest on savings and 8% on current accounts. I don't know how workable these kind of things are, but they're very cool ideas, some of these things. What are people saying about this party?
There's very, very mixed views on it. Some people, I mean, pretty much exclusively John Rhys-Evans supporters, they're very much of the view that it's a great move. It's even since UKIP didn't vote for direct democracy, there's a new party that will. They're going to bring it in. They're going to win the election. You know, that kind of talk. But equally, there's some John Rhys-Evans supporters and not John Rhys-Evans supporters who are saying, well, actually, it may be a nice idea, but a new party, especially one as unique as that, can't take off the ground. And the only way it could is if it's got several big backers, John Rhys-Evans being one of them, of course, if he does back it. But I had a little look last night at the website itself and where it's registered and that sort of thing. And I know John Rhys-Evans has his own web servers, and he hosts his own websites off of those. So my thinking is, if he were to be involved with it, the website would be hosted off the same one as his website, but actually it isn't. So I'm thinking it's hosted by the friend of his or another company, rather than by John, again indicating that it wouldn't be John's involvement.
Right. You know, I'm looking at the UKIP.org website now, and I'm going to go to the news and media latest news. I did this last night and had a look. I mean, there's some stuff going on the homepage. It's a terrible site. I'm going to go to the latest news page. Oh, at last, they've got some stories that mention Henry Bolton. Last night, they didn't. They didn't. Last night, the stories they had, they haven't even mentioned that he won. It's just incredible. But UKIP needs a big kick up there. If it can't even get the message out on its own website, what's going on in its own party, do you think now, at last, under Henry Bolton, who does seem like a guy who, you know, he could probably administer some authority. Yeah, he's probably got some good experience doing that. You probably want to make sure you're doing your job very well if you're in that party. Is there a chance that UKIP can organise itself and become a proper force rather than a bit of a laughing stock?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, what Henry Bolton has a lot of experience in organisation, planning, logistics, that side of things, specifically in government. Actually, he actually helped to set up a government, I think. So he's very aware of what's needed in an organisation, what's needed in running people, and actually getting people to do the things you told them to. Because I'm sure in his time he's had a lot of people who've not done the things he's told them to under him. So I would think that is one problem UKIP's had. So I would think that he's able to deal with that and actually make sure things like the website, social media, emails, that kind of thing is all up to date. And I have a feeling that once he's got it all sorted out with a new team or the same team, but with more people, that kind of thing, he'll be able to boost that a lot.
He's talked about inappropriate force so far as the way the police treated the voters in the referendum yesterday in Catalonia. So he's made a comment about that. Anyway, yeah. Piers, tell me, I know that you're not as attached to what's going on with UKIP specifically, but I also know that you're conversive with what the media are telling you. How much do you know about these people that we've been talking about out of interest as a more regular member of the public?
Well, I mean, I am a member of the party, and I was sent an election. I could have voted to pick a new leader, but to be fair,
What? You didn't?
I didn't because I felt too ignorant of who was standing. I didn't have enough time to properly investigate and look into who was. Hold on, my flatmates just got back. Hola, ¿qué tal?
I tell you, these Spaniards, they get everywhere, don't they? All over. You get into a tube train, everybody's speaking Spanish.
Yeah, my flatmate is from Burgos, and she's just got back from visiting her family, so she's Anyway,
lovely, nice place.
I've never been. Yeah, I know, but it does
beautiful.
look nice. Have to go sometime. But yeah, I mean, I don't know a great deal about Henry Bolton, to be fair. And I'm finding myself being informed just having listened to the pair of you talk. I do take a bit of a backseat. I tend to vote only really in general elections. I'm one of those sort of folk. I don't really get heavily involved with party politics in the interim. I go for the main events.
I'll tell you what. That's not the right idea. That's not the right attitude.
Well, no, you're probably right.
You have to.
You're probably right, but I'm a bit of a cynic. I mean, I personally think that the sort of democratic process is so sort of fundamentally flawed now that what we vote for makes very little difference. Perhaps if we had the same system as the Germans, sort of proportional representation in this country, then UKIP would have got a number of seats and would have a number of sitting parliamentarians if we'd had that system in the last general election. But it's just nothing ever changes. We end up with the same old stuff at time immemorial, whether it be Labour or Conservative. I mean, they're all basically lobbied and working by the Bilderberg Group. This corporate group of people that meet, in private annually. And I think that group was set up in 54 deliberately to create the sort of globalization project that we're all witnessing now. Basically to create a sort of ultimate one world government. I mean, we've all heard Kissinger and Bush and God knows who else talk about this, new world order, one world government, all this sort of stuff. This is their ideology. This is their philosophy. They want to unite the Americas, Canada, the US and Mexico, and then Europe, under the EU, and then other giant super states globally, and then sort of centralized power. I mean that was the modus operandi of the primary modus operandi of the inception of Bilderberg. And,
okay. Let me interject briefly, Piers. Let me interject very briefly there with a question for Reese. Is Henry Bolton a Bilderberger? Or is he associated in any way with the deep state?
I have to confess, I know very little about Bilderberg. So I'm not necessarily qualified to answer that.
That's right. Oh, no, that's right. I remember you said that when you were on the show first time. You know what? That's incredible. That's incredible.
But that's exactly the way they want it. I mean, these are not heavily publicized meetings, but the matter is the fact is that they do meet. But basically, the heads of all the banks, the corporations, even some smattering of royalty sort of attend this meeting. It takes place in a hotel somewhere, some five-star hotel, some glitzy place. I think it took place in Switzerland this year, and then it was in Watford, I think, the year before. But it's all cordoned off. There's very heavy security. No press are allowed into the meetings. It's an opportunity if you ever actually accost a Bilderberg attendee.
It was in the States last year, actually, close to Washington.
It was in
and
the
year
States.
before
Okay.
it was in Watford. But carry on.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Cameron famously had a chat, or not famously, because the MSM didn't print
but this
it.
is the thing.
One or two did. He had a chat with Kissinger and then refused to release the minutes. Carry on, Piers. Sorry.
Well, no, of course, they're not allowed to. I mean, it's an off-the-record chat where the most powerful people in the world can get together, convene, and talk off-book. So they can literally speak their minds. Which in some respects is probably not a bad thing, but since these people are accountable for the rest of us, should we not be given some sort of knowledge of what they talk about, or some sort of summation of what was discussed? I mean, people like Ken Clark are being interviewed about what goes on at Bilderberg, and he says says exactly that. It's just an informal chat, off the record chat, where some very powerful people can talk off the record together about the direction the world's going in, and try and sort of steer it. I mean, he makes it sound desperately innocuous and all just sort of above board. But actually, I think there's something far more sort of conspiratorial going on. I do genuinely believe that they are pulling strings.
Sam Phipps, Chatham House rules.
Sorry?
Sam Phipps in the comments. Chatham House rules.
Yeah, I
Basically,
mean, people like Blair and Cameron are told to go. So what does that sort of tell you about it? They're summoned to these meetings and are sort of given briefings about what direction.
They're supposed to be kind of invited, but yeah.
Well,
basically.
Euphemistically.
Look, okay,
invited.
let me just, Piers, before you carry on, and Reese gets involved as well. Let me just get a few comments out here, because people are very kindly commenting. Lynn Scott, Bilderberg run EU. Sam Phipps, as I said, Chatham House rules. Lynn Scott, they watch TV. Lynn Scott, nothing's free. What you don't pay for someone else does, as government, don't have any money. What you don't pay for someone else does, I don't know. How can people still not know about Bilderbergers and Fabians? Then we've got Debbie Shaw. So all those members that have been called Nazis, she's talking about UKIP here, and been told who they can and can't be associated with, as well as knowing how bad the NEC has been. Re Thomas' report from one over a year ago. Reese, maybe you can comment on that in a sec. So how exactly has this new leader united the good people in this group who are fully aware of the WW issue of a certain political religion? What would you say about that, Reese? Well, I don't know where Reese is. Daryl Goodlive says, would prefer unequivocal backing for the Catalans from Henry. Okay, he'd prefer unequivocal backing for the Catalans from Henry. Daryl, it's such a complicated issue, though. This Spanish Catalonia issue is so tricky, because these cultures are so intertwined and enmeshed with each other. I have to say...
Yeah, I mean, but it's just the way that... It's the way that it was handled by the
It's so tricky. This is a really tricky crisis going on in Spain.
You can't bring in the goon squad and start bashing people just because they want to make a vote. Let them vote and then have a discussion about the legitimacy of the vote afterwards. You don't go in there and start a cyber warfare about voting sites and then literally inflicting damage to sort of 900 plus people. I mean, that is complete tyranny. The EU have become so paranoid about this sense of nationalist spirit that's sort of beginning to evolve off the back of Brexit, really, and the fact that Greece is basically being turned into a sort of slave state under the EU troika. I mean, it's these banks like Goldman Sachs that have gone in there, fudged the figures to make Greece look eligible for joining the EU in the first place, and then when they've been given tons of money by these banks, and obviously they haven't been able to pay any of it back. and as a result of that, they're now on hock. Anything that's worth its salt in Greece now is on hock to all the banks. So basically, it's a corporate takeover of Europe. They want to destroy the economies of these Mediterranean states, so they can basically buy it all up, a penny on the euro, or a cent on the euro, and take over. So they end up owning everything, including all the politicians who were bribed probably in the first place in order to sort of enable the whole process to take place. It's why can't people see this? Why are all these people in the streets bemoaning? Can they not see what's being done to them? We are on the verge of turning this globe into a kind of version of the Hunger Games, and this is what they want. This is if you look really deeply into this stuff, this is what they want. They think that there are various sorts of major events, global events, whether it has to do with
hold on. Be careful going down that road, Piers.
But they do believe that there are various things that are going to happen in the course of the next few years. That I mean,
I'll tell you what though, Gary Smith says this bloke has it nailed. Yeah, and David Winder says I read just yesterday that Rothschild is worth $900 trillion. Paul Brodie, the firefighters in Spain stood by the Spanish people. Isn't this the job of the police? He's right. The firefighters in Spain, some of them, I think I saw video of, no, I didn't. I read about one being batoned by the police, a firefighter, by their own police.
I was heavily
There were
chastised.
actually different police forces. In one video I saw, the Catalan police force, the Catalonian police force was protecting the demonstrators, the people that wanted to vote from the national police. It was incredible, an incredible video. And oh man, anyway, Piers, sorry, carry on.
No, I just wanted to sort of talk about what happened in Vegas as well. I mean, one thing that strikes me as odd about all these things that go on is that the 30th of September, so that was Saturday, was when the Americans hit the debt ceiling. So that was a weekend day. So the markets weren't open. Monday this morning was when trading would have started again. Today. So we're now in a the first trading day, business day post the debt ceiling being breached in the States.
You think that this was a distraction?
Well, and suddenly we end up with a massacre in Vegas. I
don't know.
Now,
what was that guy? What was his deal? Was he just nuts?
Well, I don't know. Apparently, he converted to Islam, and ISIS or Islamic State are taking. Yeah, apparently they're taking credit for this atrocity. Although, if you look at the guy they're tagging for, with the blame for this,
I thought that this was a sort of a more. I thought he was. Well, I mean,
it looks to me like
a European name, not Arabic or what have you.
Well, I mean,
go on, Reese, go on.
It's very unclear what's happened because I actually did a report on this on Kipper Central. There's lots of mixed reports. So first of all, it was unknown. There was a man in a roof with a gun. That was about all that was known. And since then, he's been named. We know he's killed himself. And what we do know now is that an ISIS-affiliated magazine called, if I can find it, called Amak. They claimed, quote, the Las Vegas attack was carried out by a soldier of the Islamic State, and he carried it out in response to calls to target states of the coalition. And then they go on to say, the Las Vegas attacker converted to Islam a few months ago. So that's what they're claiming. Now, policemen and the FBI in America have downplayed that and said there's no evidence to suggest that, but they can't outright deny it because they don't know. And they're obviously looking into it at the moment, but they seem to think it's not true. But of course, at the moment,
who thinks it's not true?
The police.
The police and the FBI don't think it's true. Right. But as I said,
have you seen a film called The Bourne Legacy? It's not one of the ones with Matt Damon in. It's that other chap. Anyway, there's a scene in a lab where this chap is sort of triggered into killing a lot of the scientists working in this lab, and then he ends up shooting himself.
It's like the Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah, yeah, it's like I do believe that. I mean, even Darren Brown, that illusionist and hypnotist, who's famous and appears on television quite frequently. He brought a crew of people in one particular episode to find the most suggestible individuals that he could hypnotize quite easily. And he found one individual that he could manipulate really, really quickly. And he had him sitting in baths of ice water for several minutes and doing all kinds of crazy stuff that this guy just couldn't feel it because he had him in a sort of trance, And he conditioned this guy. He trained him how to shoot. Took him down the range, put him in a hypnotic trance, and put his mind into a state of focus that enabled him to be able to shoot and conditioned it, and then gave him certain triggers, and then put him in a situation where he was in a theatre watching Stephen Fry on stage, who was part of the gag. And was rigged with squibs on stage. But the guy was triggered by a girl in a polka dot dress sat in front of him. And as soon as he saw the polka dots, he was, he had a briefcase in front of him. He gets put in, instantly goes into this sort of trance, opens the briefcase, takes out the gun, shoots Stephen Fry on stage, and then has absolutely no recollection of having done what he's done. Because they bring him out, he's programmed him in such a way that when he takes him out of the trance and they show him the footage, post the event, he has absolutely no recollection of shooting Stephen Fry at all. So this has been on mainstream television. This is not fake. This is real. This is like the ability for people to be sort of, to be programmed. And imagine what they can do with some of the mind-altering drugs that are probably available to some of these, to the CIA or FBI or whatever alphabet agency you want to talk about. This is just Darren Brown and some silly program on television. But the fact is, you can manipulate people to carry out things, without them being aware of what they're doing. And this guy, when you see a picture of him, he looks perfectly normal. He looks just like a regular old boy. Why would he convert to Islam? That seems highly unlikely and suspect. But was he susceptible to being manipulated? And have they used this philosophy with a number of these atrocities in the US? I mean, it just strikes. I know it sounds very, very far-fetched and conspiratorial, but I do believe these technologies exist. And it just struck me as very odd that they've just reached the debt ceiling and are being plunged into all kinds of financial worries. Are they going to be able to? What are they going to do? Kick the can down the cul-de-sac again? More quantitative easing. What are they going to do? They're printing money they've been printing money out of thin air. Nobody you've got the BRICS alliance: Brazil, Russia, India, and China, ditching the dollar left, right, and centre, and a number of other nations.
They're not very happy about that, are they?
This is why America's become so bellicose.
Okay, so you think this, as soon as they hit the debt ceiling, I mean, they're just going to have another vote, aren't they? I mean, but you're saying this could well be another distraction, and that they're pretty much used to doing that.
I don't know if it is or isn't, but it strikes me as very odd that on the first working day post the debt ceiling being reached. Yeah. We end up with a massacre in Vegas, which is what everybody's focusing their attention on in America right now, and nothing to do with the dire fiscal state that America finds itself in. We've been in dead. 58 dead. We've been in
and 515 injured at that Vegas concert. I'm just wow. Bloody, it's true.
We've been in a recession.
According to Drudge. Unbelievable. Sorry, carry on, Piers. But, okay, so we don't know the truth of it. We don't know the truth of it. But actually, there's another point to all of this, or another side to all of this, which is this world has just gone berserk. In the States, there is so much division, as there is, of course, in Europe, and we're seeing it in Spain, for example. We're seeing it all over the place. We have people like Rees-Mogg saying that it could happen in the UK if Brexit isn't observed. People are going collectively mad, Rees.
Well, I mean, the world's going mad. I wouldn't say it's people going mad. It's the world going mad.
Do you think that things are getting worse? Or rather, are we coming to some kind of a crossroads here? And in terms of UKIP, because I know that's your field, is UKIP at a crossroads? Are its grassroots, you know, are they going to stick with UKIP?
I want to know why
Farage
has got out of. Why has he got out of mainstream politics? Has he just become so totally disheartened? I really like Nigel Farage. I mean, a lot of people hate his guts.
He's backing Bolton, isn't he?
I
think he's great.
The reason I think you've got to look at Farage, and you've got to look at a man who spent 20 years being the most unpopular politician in the country and standing up for his job every single day in a parliament full of 750 people who would quite literally love to watch him being thrown out of that country. You know, that's the kind of abuse he's having. And he's had online abuse. He's had literally his family physically moved out of a pub by a crowd of protesters. Yeah. He's had eggs thrown at him constantly. He has probably been one of the most... you know, he suffered one of the,
He is extraordinarily thick-skinned, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think he might return. Perhaps he will, but I think
we need characters. This is what I mean. Henry Bolton's a bit of an unknown. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Farage, you know, despite whatever people might think of him, is somebody that everybody knows. He's a character. He's one of those. The rare breed of politician that everybody knows. You know, most people would struggle to name, you know, 2 or 3 members of the current cabinet, probably. You know, but they know who Nigel Farage is because of his charisma and his ability to make off-the-cuff speeches that just resonate with people. The way he stood up to, you know, all those people in the European Parliament. I mean, I love watching him make speeches in the European Parliament. He just completely tears them apart, and the look on their faces when he's going at them is extraordinary. Are you all still there? Am I talking to myself?
Oh, yeah.
No. But I mean,
Reece,
I don't know.
Henry Bolton. Let's pretend we're not
Henry
here.
Bolton is a bit of an unknown quantity. I'm sure he's. Let's hope he's a man of substance. I mean, I don't know enough about him, so I can't really comment. But I mean, like, only time will tell. But it's Farage sort of built UKIP from its inception up to what it became.
Well, Jimmy Goldsmith was the geezer, but yeah, Farage did. I mean, he converted it.
Without him, it would have been nothing.
Yeah,
it would have been nothing.
Yeah.
And it basically, the British establishment has done everything in their power to prevent Farage from gaining an MP seat. I think the local elections that would have enabled Nigel Farage to get in. Have been doctored to hell by the Tories, to prevent him from being able to stand up as an MP in Parliament. Because can you imagine? It would only take a character like Nigel Farage, one MP, one UKIP MP in Parliament to showboat, and he would have them all cringing. And they have done everything in their power to prevent that from happening. And I think things have got dodged in local elections where they are electing local MPs and in Thanet. I think there's be some tomfoolery in Thanet, and they've done everything to prevent him from being able to sit.
I think there was some tomfoolery in South Thanet. Yeah. Okay. Gary Smith, and thanks to Hammond, we have a 2-year period of paying into the EU with no MEPs. Taxation without representation. Well said. Sorry, Reece, carry on.
I was going to say, I mean, I've not got this confirmed, but I've heard that in Thanet, on the night of the, I think it was the 2015 election, where obviously Farage was thought to win, they were close to finishing the count. The piles were looking about even for Tory and UKIP, and all of a sudden, there was another 2 voting boxes that were found full of ballots, and they brought them out. And guess who won? The Conservatives.
Exactly.
And I don't want to say this is true because I've not got it from a reliable source, but I've heard, and I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if it was true, because that council in particular
there is so much riding on
has
this.
A lot of corruption, and obviously the MP who won fraudulently, and if there wasn't another election since then, there would have had to be a by-election, and UKIP would have probably won it, which I think is partly why there was the election in 2017.
Yeah, they've done absolutely. They know he's seriously he's very dangerous to them. He's very dangerous. He is respected and reviled at the same time by the Tory elite, and they have done everything in their power to prevent him from gaining a seat in Parliament because they know But if he was, he would basically do exactly what he's done in the European Parliament. He'd stand up and show them all up for what they really are, and they've done everything in their power to prevent that from happening. And I think Farage has actually just become rather disheartened with the whole process, because no matter how hard he's tried to get elected, and probably has been elected, a bit of tomfoolery and fiddling and fudging has gone on in order to prevent the legitimacy of his appointment as an MP to take place. So it's I think he's realised now that no matter how hard he tries, that the establishment are just not going to let him, have a voice in the British Parliament. They're just not.
Just a few comments. Some cracking comments coming in. Debbie Shaw, Farage was fantastic. So many of us had completely believed he would get us all the way out. Alas, perhaps when others dare speak up and out about the secret societies, we will hear more. Marty Kane. So why didn't UKIP win in 2017? John Apperdeen, Owen Jones calls what's going on in Catalonia an attack on democracy, yet wants to overturn the result of our own referendum. Yeah, quite right,
Good point, John.
Well said. David Allison, they don't even mention the name of Farage. They're so scared of his power. Mary Jones has an interesting question. Is it true Henry Bolton is an ex-Liberal MP? No, he's an ex-Lib Dem. He's an ex-Lib Dem, yeah?
He used to be a candidate for the Lib Dems.
He was a candidate. Okay. Oh, hold on. Oh, I lost the comments. I just lost the comments. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, one of the comments that somebody had was, has Farage, I think this was David Clark, has Farage gone over to the establishment? Reese,
no.
That's an interesting theory. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but he's not actually active. But that would have to suppose he'd be controlled opposition, and also that he was an incredible fraud. It's just an impossible idea, surely. David,
no, I mean, he was still at UK conference. He came along. He didn't do a speech, but he was there. Right. He's still obviously, he's on LBC, where you only have to listen to 5 minutes of it and he's not establishment. He still stands up in the Parliament. He still mocks all the MEPs, and he still despises Theresa May for lying. I don't know what more anti-establishment you want.
Yeah, no, I mean, Theresa May really is a Bilderberg puppet. I mean, if ever there was one, the duplicity of that woman just makes me want to vomit. She was Home Secretary for that length of time. She set up the child sex abuse inquiry, and that has just been bogged down in bureaucracy and mistakes, and it's been dragged out time immemorial. If there's any legitimacy to accusing any of these very seriously powerful people of pedophilia, then they have done absolutely everything in their power to prevent any of this from being, coming out, surfacing. Whenever the government don't want anything to come out, they drag it out over a period of time. There's all these articles about Ted Heath coming out. He was the one who took us into the European Economic Community, and there he is using tons of children.
We know it's treason. We know it's all treason.
Well, yeah, Jimmy Savile was untouchable during his lifetime because he was basically a pimp providing these elites with kids to abuse.
Okay, hold on. Now we're getting into the grounds of theory, although possibly correct.
I think it's more than you actually
you believe those theories.
I believe it absolutely wholeheartedly.
To be honest with you, so do I. But so do I. However, it has to be said that there's no concrete evidence of that. But
yes, there is plenty of concrete evidence that is being heavily suppressed.
Well, yeah, but we haven't seen.
Yes, we haven't. No, I mean, I'll give you an example.
There's the list, for example, of the guests at Elm Grove. The B&B place.
The Elm Guest House in Barnes. Yes, that's right.
There's the list.
It was on this morning. It was Phil Schofield who basically produced the list in front of David Cameron. And David Cameron was sat there sort of squirming.
It was
looking
good TV.
At this list of Elm Guest House
TV
names.
Philip Schofield. He basically
said,
he'll never get an OBE. He won't.
He basically said to Philip Schofield, I think it's wrong that we should be besmirching homosexuality within, and absolutely right. That's a valid point. There's nothing wrong with being homosexual, but that was a cover for something far darker and far deeper. It was. I mean, there were all kinds of. Who was that fat Liberal MP who was
Cyril
also
Smith?
Cyril Smith, he used to go to the Elm Guest House as well. I mean, there's a whole list of names.
Anyway, look, without going into all of those names, and yes, I think Cyril Smith was on that list. Certainly, we know what he did in Rochdale.
Well, you see,
there was a point. I was going to make a point.
What people have to understand about British politics,
yes,
is that I know that people are going to balk. A lot of people are going to balk at this that are listening, but this is the fact. You have in '95, you had Tim Fortescue on the BBC. He was the chief whip under Heath, talking on the radio. Many people may have heard this clip, but I can paraphrase roughly what he said.
Oh, right. Okay, hold on. I'll play it.
You've played it before.
I'll play it. Hold on.
I cannot understand for the life of me why people do not understand the significance of this particular clip from the BBC. He was Ted Heath's chief whip. Listen to what he's going to say. This guy... I cannot believe he actually admitted as much as he did.
Anyone with any sense was...
Yeah, this is Tim Fortescue, Ted Heath's chief whip. No, not chief, but one of his whips.
Yeah, his chief whip.
Anyone with any sense who was in trouble would come to the whips.
Anyone who had any sense, who was in trouble, would come to the whips.
Anyone with any sense who was in trouble would come to the whips and tell them the truth and say, no, I'm in a jam, can you help? It might be debt, it might be... scandal involving small boys, or any kind of scandal which a member seemed likely to be mixed up in. They'd come and ask if we could help, and if we could, we did, and we would do everything we can, because we would store up brownie points. That sounds a pretty nasty reason, but it's one of the reasons. Is if we can get a chap out of trouble, then he'll do as we ask forevermore.
So, in other words, that's how they oil the rails of democracy in Britain, or did under the Ted Heath administration.
Yeah, and you think that's stopped? That this is all in the past? This is some sort of
I don't know, Piers. I don't know. I'll tell you what I do know.
It is not. It is not. It is still going on to this day. And the Parliament is absolutely riddled with perverts that have been deliberately put in power and have been allowed to abuse at their leisure under the auspices and control of MI5, as long as they steer policy in the direction that the globalists want. And it's a very simple and easy. It's disgusting and makes you want to puke, but it's a very effective way of controlling very powerful people.
The whips have a huge amount of power in Parliament. And for reasons like that, they're very good. They are very good at helping people out. If an MP is in trouble, their party whip can do a lot to deal with it, because they're also friendly with the press. But it works on a two-way basis, because if they're unhappy with an MP and the press are unhappy with them, they've got to leak something. So they choose an MP who votes against them, and they leak something. Now, it's usually not on the scale of paedophilia or something like that, but there'll be a bad story or an awful picture from their childhood, or they've got this massive bank of things that are building up that they make sure the press don't publish until they want to. The press are happy, the party are happy. The only people that are losing out are the public, because they've not got MPs who are representing them. They've got MPs who are representing their want for their own bad pasts not to be revealed. And there are some MPs out there who are not like that at all, and fair play to them.
No,
but
absolutely.
There are a lot of MPs
This is not. You're absolutely right. This is not.
Why? I'll give you an example. I'll give you one. Piers, one recent example was Harriet Harman. I mean, she was affiliated with Pi somehow, wasn't she? And her husband, who's also an MP, a Labour MP, both of them were somehow, they had an association where they kind of
they were young.
They were prepared to deal with Pi politically. That was the bottom line on Islington Council. Harriet Harman and her husband. And she, after that became known, was acting Labour leader. She was the Piers, hold on.
Council of Civil Liberties, wasn't it?
Right, whatever, I don't know. But she became the active Labour leader. I mean, it's just unbelievable that anybody with that kind of a past association...
No, but Ollie, can we
Am I being unfair?
I mean, like,
am I being unfair?
No,
I'm just saying that there's still clearly in the ranks in Parliament, it's like there's some sort of a cover-up, or it's still kind of okay. Actually, if you look at the media as well, you could also argue there's a big push towards actually having more tolerance to paedophilia. As an aside, okay, we're going way off topic here. Yeah, no, we're going way off topic.
We're not.
But we're talking about.
This is very valid. This is extremely valid. It was the Nazis that realised that using proclivities, sexual proclivities, regardless of how twisted they may be, as an advantage against people. Obviously. From a socio point of view, paedophilia is a no-go. You don't. But however, there are grown-ups in this world that fancy children, and if you're monitoring the brightest kids at Cambridge and Oxford and all the kind of schools, the best schools in the country, and you're monitoring them. You've got people on the payroll at these universities, dons and various folks, who are subcontracted to work for some of the MI5 or whatever. They're looking at these individuals. They're working out what their proclivities are. They're working out how intelligent they are, how susceptible they are, to manipulation, what have you. I don't know. And then they can, if they show an interest in politics, they can steer them. They can manipulate them, and they can bring them up the ladder of the chain of command. And then they can give them the opportunity to fulfill these proclivities.
Well, probably, one sec, Piers. People out there watching were probably wondering why the thing kept breaking up and the video quality was awful and kept pausing and stuff. I'm really, really sorry. I was going through my VPN, and that is something I must not do. I apologize, folks. Okay, that was awful and kept pausing and stuff. I'm really, really... Okay, we're there. Well,
please
carry on.
Clearly, clearly, MI5 are listening in on what we're talking about and don't want people to hear what we're saying.
The rest of the show, for what it's worth, will be better quality stream, and I do apologise for the first 55 minutes of the show. Piers, carry on, mate. Go on. You were having a really good rant. Piers. Reese? Oh, for goodness sake. Are you there?
Exactly. Even our own bloody Bank of England, Mark Carney is an ex-Goldman Sachs employee. They're all ex-Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is like some sort of globalist, sort of Masonic type of, it's part of the tentacles. It's part of Hydra. It's part, whatever you want to call it. This is the way the world operates. These people are brought in to destroy the economic vitality of a country by lending them money that's basically been printed by central banks and lent to the banks at practically zero interest, and then they lend it out to various governments around the world. And charge interest on something on a loan that they've been given by the central banks for nothing, and everybody's on hock. Everybody, all these governments, all these politicians that are easily bribed and bent and have been, will swan off into the sunset with their millions because they don't give a crap about the general populace. They're only interested in lining their own pockets. Look at Philip Green. What a detestable human being he is. He was knighted, for crying out loud, and yet he completely destroyed the pension fund of British Home Stores. These are the people they knight. Come on, what kind of philosophy is that? But this is what I mean, that the manipulation that goes on. If you throw vast sums of money at people, they lose focus. They cannot, it's an amazingly potent and effective tool for manipulation. People will justify it to themselves in any way they can, shape or form. Do you
think there's any possibility, Piers, that UKIP has been infiltrated? I'm not accusing Henry Bolton of anything at all. From what I can see of his record, he's a stand-up guy. Nonetheless, he is
I
an
sincerely-
OBE,
I
and he does
sincerely
kind of
hope
have
so.
an establishment sort of a background. So there is a possibility that he would maybe toe the line. I've seen
all
it
of the,
said.
all of the British
let
Empire.
me just,
There are people
Well,
that
go on.
gain title that are worthy of such title.
Yeah.
There are a lot that aren't,
Yeah.
and it's like getting a gold star at school. You know, it really is as perversely stupid as that. People are so obsessed with stature and position and
well,
you know,
services to security, mate, and he also was commended as a copper for bravery.
No, well,
for bravery.
I don't know anything about the guy. Maybe he's
No, fair
well
enough.
deserved.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
I think
but
one of
nonetheless,
the-
I mean, you know, he's kind of pretty old school
But you-
tie. Do you know what I mean?
But
What do you
look at
reckon,
the way-
Rhys?
Well, one of the main claims that he's establishment or the lefty or whatever whatever people are saying about him, these people might point out tend to be Tories rather than UKIP,
Right.
who are ex-UKIP. But I think one of the main arguments is, well, he used to be a Lib Dem, so he must be a liberal, he must like the EU, etc. Well, I'm actually going to quote Winston Churchill here. Some men change their party for the sake of their principles, other their principles for the sake of their party. And actually, I think that sums it up pretty well, because Henry would have joined the Lib Dems for one reason or another because he felt they were the right party at the time. Bear in mind, they used to be a lot less what they're like now back then.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point he would have thought, actually, they're not standing up for what I believe in anymore. They don't represent me. And he'll have thought, who does? And he'll have looked it up, and he thought UKIP. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. That shows he's actually brave enough to ditch however far he's got, which shows he's not a careerist, to ditch however far he's got into Lib Dems, scrap them, and go to the opposite end of the spectrum with UKIP and start afresh. And actually, to me, that shows true values and commitment to what he believes in, because it's not easy moving parties, especially when you're someone like Henry, where he stood for a parliamentary candidate. It's not easy switching parties and ditching wherever you are. So I think the argument that he's establishment for that reason is wrong, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, he's a man of conviction. He goes where his heart takes him and his mind takes him. No, yeah,
Piers,
perhaps
hold that
he's
thought,
okay.
hold that thought. Guys, are you going to call in? Are you going to call in? Is anybody going to call in? Because, yeah, please, because I would like to hear what other people have to say as well. Yeah, come on. Ollie Connolly on Skype. Just call Ollie Connolly on Skype and I'll patch you in. And, hey, there's no standing on ceremony. Hopefully we'll have a laugh too. And we might even get Piers to tell us some alien stories. Lisa Broomhall, Winston Churchill used to be a Lib Dem and then swapped parties.
My point
Denny
exactly.
Davis, the people are sovereign. Take back control with the dragons. Gary Smith, spot on. Hope Henry does turn out to be a winner. And, the Queen no longer has sovereign power, says David Allison. She signed that away. Defender of the Christian faith? How does she do that? No, the only power is the people's. Christopher Baxter doesn't like something you said, Piers. Just remember who your friends and neighbours are. This is never going to end, is it? It's scary. Probably down to Brexit and all the trouble it's causing together with the extremist ideology that is within our society many do not recognise or accept. Please don't tar everyone with the same brush when calling them far-right or racist. After all they are doing is thinking of you, their families and country. Piers, I guess you better be allowed to defend yourself.
I wasn't aware that I'd been sort of
Neither did I.
bigoted
No,
or xenophobic in any way.
I didn't think you were.
Talking about
I
any
didn't
of
think
that.
you were. I didn't think you were.
I'm not. Was I? I mean,
No, you weren't.
No, I don't
You weren't.
think-
I don't know
Chris,
why I said that.
I wasn't talking about race in any way, shape, or form. I've been talking about how parliamentarians are manipulated.
Lisa, good night. God bless you. Enjoy Farage, yeah? I'll be there in a bit too.
I just like to state that I don't mind living in a society where we're culturally diverse. I don't mind that. I mean, that's the society we live in. I think there should be a degree of commonality and common sense. I think there are anachronistic and archaic ideologies built within certain faiths and religions that I don't agree with, and I think we should find some common ground. If you want to be religious, then we should find the common ground. I don't believe that religious doctrine and certain forms of religious law should should usurp the laws of the land. Yes, I do believe these things. But am I a racist? No, not in the slightest. I never have or never will care what.
No, of course not, Piers. I know you're not. For crying out loud. Reese, tell me, what is the balance now in UKIP that Henry Bolton can bring, do you think, in terms of this kind of, if you like, between the Brexit thing and all that and other issues, but of course migration being uppermost in that, as opposed to what we might have had with Anne-Marie Waters? Is it not now going to be the case that from that point of view, UKIP's a lot easier to unite?
Well, yeah, I mean, Henry Bolton has made it fairly clear that Brexit is his priority, as it is for most of us. And of course, that is the biggest priority for the country and for every party, because it's a massive issue that affects every single other policy that any party will ever come up with forever. So, of course, we have to focus on Brexit, like he says. And in that respect, he's similar to Nigel. However, he does also want to develop our other policies because they are very important. And within a few years' time, if all goes to plan, which it might not, but there's a good chance we'll have left the EU. And while it will still be an issue and how we leave and what happens with the EU and trade deals, etc., that's not going to be the biggest issue anymore. And we're going to have other issues. And I'm sure in the next month or so, Henry will have announced a lot of our policies around all other issues, from immigration to healthcare to education to taxation. But I think Brexit is, and rightly so, our main policy, because that's what the people care about most. And if the people care about it, we need to be talking about it.
Just a couple of comments here. Beverly Taylor King, sorry, just do not trust this new leader. Chris Baxter has chimed back in. I know Piers isn't a racist, just taking the piss. Sam Phipps, why the word racist? It's a religion, not a race. Good point. Very good point. Trevor Barnett, David the Queen did sign, but there is something about this. Oh, no, that's a conversation to have between themselves. But Marty Kane does say, I watched Henry in his press conference and he was very impressive. So really Kippers should give him a chance to prove himself, really. And then Trevor Barnett replies to that. David the Queen did sign. Oh, no, it's about a different point. It's about a different point. I'm getting confused in the comments. Paul Bolton, Henry Bolton is a paid man. Yeah, but you're his brother, aren't you, Paul? Paul Bolton, Parliament has been acting illegally for generations. They must all be brought to justice. And Paul Brodie says, Henry has a difficult job on his hands. The public do not trust any politicians now. And that is absolutely something I was thinking. When I was thinking about this show and what we'd be talking about, I was having a wander earlier. And I was thinking precisely that. I was thinking, if Henry Bolton called into this show tonight and we were having this kind of chat, I would put my cards on the table with him and I'd say, I don't entirely trust you. And it's nothing personal. It's because I don't trust anybody in political power, especially. And the default
you have
definitely
interviewed him,
not to trust.
You did interview him.
Last week.
Yeah.
I have to say that
nice guy. Seems like a really nice guy. And he does seem pretty genuine. But you know what? I thought the same. God damn it. Once I voted for Tony Blair. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a good judge of character.
What?
I'm not a good judge of character. That was before the war, yeah.
Get off the air now.
Right, get off the
air.
I so apologise. I really
we're going to run the Daily Brexit from now on.
Okay, yes. Tony Blair.
That's the most appalling thing I think I've ever heard anybody say.
We get some scandal on this show. Yeah, we get some scandal on this show.
Did you actually vote Labour once?
Yeah, I did. I voted for all of them. I am a self-confessed and a proud floating voter. I've got no objection to that, but it's just that you bought into his bull. It was the first time round. We just had John Major. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
there was all that Tory sleaze going on. It was a long time ago. Tory sleaze. You remember that? And now what do we got instead? We got Tory Bilderbergs. Yeah, we had them.
They all work for Bilderberg. I mean, it doesn't matter whether they're Labour or all.
So
I mean, okay,
from that point of view, Henry Bolton, bless him, has got a hard job before he even starts, because everybody's asking the same question: is he establishment? Is he for real?
Well, this is the big question. This is the big question. I mean, if he is establishment, he will be found out like Macron in France. I actually personally, being Mr. Conspiracy, think that the French election was rigged. I think Marine Le Pen probably got the vote, and I think the European Parliament was so scared by Marine Le Pen that they rigged the election in France and made Macron get in. He's now being found out for what he is, which is basically a globalist. And I think, basically, if Bolton doesn't have real substance, then people are going to twig pretty quick. And, people in France are beginning to become extremely reactionary as a result of Macron's policies. And I don't think they actually genuinely voted him in. I think he was, I think the fudge was in.
Macron. You think that was all
I actually think that if Macron had
Where the hell did he come from? Where did he come from?
Failed. If Marine Le Pen had got... If Marine Le Pen
Merkens Macroni.
Power, or in Holland, with Kurt Wilders, if Wilders had got in or Marine Le Pen had got in,
have they actually put together? Have they actually got?
Euro would have been finished.
I don't think they've got a coalition in Holland, have they? They cannot put a coalition together without Geert Wilders. Did you know that?
I don't think they.
I've heard Wilders make speeches.
It's a joke. It's the same in Spain, by the way. This guy Rajoy, who's been, getting the rubber bullets out on the Catalans, he's got no mandate from the Spanish people. He got no mandate from the Spanish people. The only reason that PP, the Parti Popular in Spain, has got power is because, having had no government at all for a year because of the deadlock off the back of an election which was a stalemate, the other parties decided between them, possibly for malfeasant reasons, I don't know, but including these young gun parties that came in, they all agreed that they would give the biggest party in the courts, the government, in the parliament in Madrid, they would give them the power. And therefore, Rajoy basically wasn't given a mandate from the people in the election. He was given the mandate from a desperate parliament who thought, maybe, we need to have a government.
Right.
It's incredible. And this guy, Rajoy, is shooting rubber bullets at Catalans and telling them,
what's happening in Catalonia right now is a direct result of what's been going on across Europe and is being suppressed heavily by a totalitarian European state. And elections have become moot. They no longer matter because all that matters is the globalist philosophy. And it doesn't matter what you vote anymore, and I believe that's true. I think the process of democracy has been dissolved, and everything that's going on in Europe now, whether it be Macron in France or Wilders in Holland or
Marine Le Pen. Marine Le Pen got a massive presence in that election. I mean, it didn't transcribe or whatever, but it didn't translate. But she had an enormous presence. And it comes back to what you were saying, Piers, originally about Macron. And how on earth did this guy come out of nowhere? Kind of like a Blair, he looks kind of like Tony Blair. I mean...
and his wife was seeing him when he was 15.
And the French are gone for it.
She's about, 20 years older than he is or something? He's in his mid-40s. She's about 20 years older than he is, and they started seeing each other when he was at school and he was 15. So it's sort of like a
what's that got to do with it?
There's a sexually deviant aspect to his whole being as well. So that which
Trump liked her, didn't he? Trump said, "Cool, she's not bad for
what we were talking about earlier on." They're all a bunch of perverts. They're all a bunch of twisted deviants who are on the globalist payroll.
What about that whiner bloke? Okay, this is an aside. What about that whiner bloke? Hillary Clinton's lesbian lovers. Oh, sorry, that's allegedly. Yeah, that's allegedly. Lesbian lovers.
No, he's been. Wiener's been convicted.
Husband.
He's going to
Weiner.
Prison.
He's going to prison.
No.
He's going to prison.
Yeah,
he had emails, Clinton emails on the. We're going off topic. We'll come back to Henry. We might not. I mean, it's late. We've been on for a while.
What I'm
We'll
saying
see.
is, I don't believe in the democratic process anymore because I don't think it. I think it's being heavily manipulated. I think Nigel Farage would have been an MP in the UK if democracy had seen its true light. I think the Tories manipulated the Thanet elections in order to prevent Nigel from getting in, and he has become despondent. And as a result of that, and he can use his voice on LBC and other outlets quite effectively.
He's still an MEP.
But it's become increasingly apparent.
Or is he?
Yes, he is. But
yes,
it's become increasingly apparent
great.
that the British establishment will not allow him in Parliament. And he knows that, and he's resigned to that fact, and he is using his voice in any way, shape, or form that he can. This is the reality we live in. We do not live in a fully democratic environment any longer. I know this is hardcore stuff and very difficult for people to sort of get their heads around,
according to the comments, not really, mate. Actually,
I'm glad to hear that.
Generally speaking.
I'm glad to hear that.
Really
People
do
really
stuff.
need to wake up and realise that we are being so badly manipulated. And,
Marty Kane, Piers is right, but the people do have the power to change that. But that change will never come about by being despondent. Beverly Taylor King.
No, I'm not despondent.
Hold on. Whoa. Just you answer that in a sec. Bev Taylor King, democracy is manipulated by corrupt organisations and governments. Theresa King, very much a dictatorship. This is the kind of sentiment we're getting in the comments, generally speaking.
Well, and I have to say, it's not just the comments where we're seeing this. This is the public. I mean, I've been out door knocking a lot with local elections and things like that. And this one man, I'll always remember it because he said, "Why are you involved with politics? Why are you doing this?" And I said, I said the usual. I want to make a difference. I'm here. What we all here for. And he said, "Have you ever heard of Enoch Powell?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you know what happened to him?" And I said, "Yes, I know exactly what happened to him." And he said, "Why was he removed from politics?" Because he said the truth. And the man looked at me and he said, "Well, that's exactly it. If you say the truth, you've got no chance." And that's why he'll never vote. And that is what we're hearing from the people. And it's not just him. So many people, you knock on their door and they say, "I'm not interested. You're all liars." And it's because there's no option but to lie. And of course, in UKIP, we're different, I would like to think, because we say the truth. But that's why we don't have any MPs. Because as soon as you start telling the truth, and as soon as you start revealing what actually goes on behind closed doors, they don't want anything to do with you. They want to kick you out. They want to remove you. They want to stop every chance of the truth getting out. And that's why UKIP is so important. And actually, it's not just UKIP. It's across the world. There's parties like UKIP and like in the form of Trump and in the form of Marine Le Pen, who are saying the truth as they see it. And perhaps I disagree with some of them, but the fact is they're honest. They're saying exactly how they see the world. And it's good that there's a movement growing, but if we let it die down, if we let the momentum drop, it will die. And that's why we have to keep fighting.
Yeah, here.
I totally agree, Reece. Sorry.
Hey, that's Mark Childs. Mark, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. You?
Good, very well. But what have you got to say? What are your thoughts?
Well, Reece,
thank you for calling in. Thank you for calling in too, because most people are way too miserable and they haven't bothered. So thanks, Mark. I appreciate that.
Bit late, mate. Just delayed at work.
Good on you.
Reece hit the nail straight on the head. But the thing is, what do we do? Yes, there is that fear that if we speak the truth, we will be silenced, or certainly if people get to a certain level where the truth is being believed, that then people can be removed. But personally, I would rather always speak the truth and act with integrity rather than deceive anyone. And if that means that I'm a target of some people, you know what? Bring it on. Seriously, bring it on.
Here, man.
I mean,
absolutely. The truth. That is the only thing that will set us free. Seriously, the truth. That is all we need.
The truth will set you free.
We have been lied to so fundamentally.
People can't take the truth. You can't take the truth.
Yeah, no. I mean, but this is the reality. It is like Neo in the Matrix. I mean, it really is him barfing because he can't handle what's actually happening to him. That is the reality that we're going to have to face. We have been lied to about everything. And as soon as we actually start to be told some semblance of the truth, that is when people are really going to start freaking out, and we are going to have to go through the cold night of the day. We really are. If we ever get the truth, we're going to have to go through the cold night of the day. We're going to have to experience what it is to really understand what reality is all about. We've been lied to. The BBC is just this massive propaganda machine. Everything. They're all zombies. The people that read the news on the BBC are zombies. They are like these programmed people that, they're all just reading off an altar cue.
They all really sit on their pencils as well, aren't they? Really hoity-toity.
I like Graham.
They all look like they're
sat
on pencils. They never smile much, and they look discomforted. Sorry, carry on, Piers.
There is no news on the BBC. I like the drama that they produce on the BBC. There is intelligence in the BBC, but the intelligence is the Secret Service, and it's all propaganda. And literally, if I watch the BBC News, I feel physically sick. The intonation, the words,
absolutely.
Motivation
completely. The whole way they write a story. You could write a thesis on the way the propaganda is spewed out.
It really,
and the running order.
Yeah.
And not so much what they say as what they don't say, and the stories that they leave out. The stories that they don't even cover being the main.
I listen to the BBC on the radio.
Not just the Beeb.
Radio
the whole
2
lot in different ways.
I like Radio 2, but when the news comes on, I have to sort of tune out, because I actually start to sort of feel slightly kind of revolted. I mean, you've just got to listen to they'll interview somebody and there will be an agenda, and they will start using, they'll start accusing certain people of certain things, and it's this faction or that faction, and and they drop it in casually into a sentence, like it's just, this is it, this is the reality. They're very sophisticated, they're very good at nuanced bullshit, and it makes me want to throw up. The BBC is pure, unadulterated propaganda. And
the worst thing about all this is it's not just keeping up the propaganda they've already got. They're keeping going. I mean, at the UKIP conference, there was a gang of Labour protesters outside, and I went and had a word with them. I'm sure some of you saw it on my Facebook, and actually what I'm about to talk about is on a video on my Facebook.
Go on.
And there was a Labour protester, and I was talking to him about Diane Abbott. And he says something along the lines of, the dictionary is not an appropriate use to define the word racist. The Oxford Dictionary is not a good way to define the word racist. They're telling us now that the dictionaries, which have been around for hundreds of years, the words in them are wrong. No, that's not how it works. The words in the dictionary are correct. And to try and change that is the
and it's important. I got my thesaurus here too, yeah? It's really, really important. Language is so important. It is so important. Language is magic. Words are magic, and we spell them. And people use it against us, the legal profession, and in fact we had Graham Moore on here, giving us a few examples of how they do that. Completely incredible, absolutely unbelievable. I suppose I should read some more comments.
Reese was making a point. Let him finish.
He was, Reese, carry on. Sorry, I was interrupting. Carry on.
I mean, it's just the attitude of those protesters, to me, summed it entirely up, because every single one of them, they were in this little bubble of their own. They were stood there with these massive hope not hate banners. Yeah. And they're stood outside of a protest. They're stood outside of a conference protesting. That's hateful. And they had banners that said, "No AFD. We don't want your AFD speaker." I asked every single one of them individually on both days, "Can you name the AFD speaker?" Not one of them could name them. I said, "Can you name the party that the AFD is from? What does it stand for?" Not one of them could name it. And in fact, one of them even got the initials wrong, despite holding a sign that's had the AFD written on it. They couldn't name a single racist
Could they even name their
MEPs,
said
or done, or policies. They couldn't name a single racist UKIP policy. They had no idea what. And it's not me just saying that. It's on my live stream. Not one person there could name anything racist about the AFD, or the person they were protesting against. But they all knew they were there. And it's just absolutely awful that these people are out there genuinely believing that what they're saying is the truth. And it's scary to think that there are so many people, and it's not just them, it's at the Tory conference as well, perhaps even worse there, that they just think that they're right. And they're not. There are some times when a difference of opinion is important, of course, but there are some times when there's right opinions and there's wrong opinions. And they're wrong. And I hate saying that because it's very authoritarian and I don't like that. But at the end of the day, they're wrong. They're entitled to say it, but they're completely wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what gets said in these, it's extraordinary. It really is. I mean, it's just like pure indoctrination. It's like everybody's just like there. It's
Well said,
being
Hazel
kind
Gorman.
of brainwashed. I mean, the people that turn up at these party political conferences, they're just the most brainwashed bunch of zombies going.
Do you remember seeing William Hague when he was about 16, when he was on the stump?
Yeah,
of the
yeah. What was that all about?
Do you remember that? Yeah, he's still banging on about Europe now, isn't he?
I mean, there's been a lot of press about him being homosexual and.
Well, wasn't he in Scallywag? Wasn't he one of the guys that was in that Scallywag article?
Yeah, I mean, like
Michael Portillo was another one, never sued. Just as an
that they're
aside.
gay, but I mean, he was.
No. That was about paedophilia. Oh no, William Hague. That was Portillo.
They were accusing him of sleeping with one of
William Hague.
his
William
young
Hague is
aides.
accused of covering up the care home scandals in the one in Wales. The one that involved Lord McAlpine, actually, that Scallywag was talking about, I think. Anyway, carry on.
No, you're absolutely right. He was, and I think that was one of the reasons why he was taken from the front line, because they were worried about what might get exposed if he remained as a frontline politician. It all got a bit.
It makes you wonder. He did retire very young.
It all got a little bit too close for comfort, so they took him out of frontline politics.
It makes you wonder. Why did he retire so young?
This is the way the system operates. Seriously, people, you've got to wake up to this reality. It really is like this. They will manipulate people in a way that is so twisted that you're going to struggle to even comprehend the reality of it. This is what they rely on. They know, they come across, it's all smart suits and language, although to be fair, Theresa May's pretty bloody rubbish at it. Blair is the consummate professional of bullshit. He's the consummate lawyer.
She is dreadful. Yeah, she's so transparent. It's incredible.
She's no lawyer. I mean, she couldn't. I've got lawyer friends, barrister friends who would destroy Theresa May in any.
She's still got a lot of people guessing. Piers. She's still got a lot of people guessing over where she's really going to go. And not many.
The establishment. She was lined up to be prime minister. Because she'd proved herself as Home Secretary and was keeping all the secrets and making sure that nothing was exposed that would lead to trouble. She held the position of Home Secretary longer than I think any parliamentarian has.
Yeah, she did. Yeah,
for a long time. And and as a result of that,
turn a blind to Sharia law and stuff like that.
She's a trustworthy individual that we can foist into the the lead role. Not that anybody actually voted for her. And then she calls this snap general election. But her globalist handlers, her Bilderberg handlers, would have said, right, be as unpopular as you possibly can be, because we need you to lose any sense of any kind of a political advantage.
But what have they got on her then? You're suggesting they must have something on her.
No, it's not that she's got something on her. It's just that.
Why would she want to do it? I mean, she hold on, Piers. She has the opportunity. She has the opportunity to go down in history as a Churchill, as a Churchillian type character, as another Maggie Thatcher. She does.
Absolutely not.
If she delivered us from Brexit, hook, line, and sinker. Hook, line, and sinker. If she did that,
pushing the cat down the cul-de-sac.
So she basically, why is she selling out? Why would she sell out her legacy?
Because she's a globalist. She's working for the globalists.
What is she going to get out of it? What's she going to get out of it?
She's a duplicitous.
How can it be worth it?
How can it be worth it? Henry Bolton can actually prove himself. It's because Theresa May is a globalist. She is working for the Bilderbergers. She threw the last general election.
She's never been.
They told her to do that.
Has she ever been to Bilderberg?
She was saying things like, "Let's bring back fox hunting" in the middle of the bloody general election. Why would she do that?
Yeah. Then there was the dementia tax.
Contentiously, debated subjects, that divides the British public ever. And she said, let's bring back fox hunting. That has got to be one of the most ridiculous, stupid things to say in a lead up to a general election I've ever heard in my life. And Why did she say that? Because she was throwing the general election. She was throwing it. She was told by her globalist Bilderberg handlers, throw the election, lose your majority. Then she has to do something, makes whatever she can deal with the Northern Ireland,
DUP.
The DUP. This is all a game. It's a game. She is a globalist. She is a traitor. She is a duplicitous.
You don't
witch.
like her then?
I would totally agree, to be honest with you. It was obviously done to weaken Brexit, and I would very much suspect that a deal was done with David Cameron for her to be Prime Minister.
That's true. That's
Do you think
possible.
they involved a porcine sort of a thing in the ceremony? Brought a pig in?
Yeah, I would go as far as to say,
Funny handshakes.
and I've said it before, that if she's not forced to resign before, I think she will stand down in 2019, and I think we could see the return of David Cameron.
No, absolutely not.
No
we
way.
cannot have that. I mean,
No way,
there's talk
no
of
way,
Blair
no way,
replacing
no way.
Jean-Claude Juncker in the European Parliament. I mean, that makes me sort of want to be sick in my mouth, just the mere thought of that. I mean, this is why the whole globalist philosophy is just happening without our say. If Blair replaces Juncker in the European Parliament, I think I'm just going to sort of. I don't know what I'm.
Tell you what, from a European perspective, that works very well because obviously they've got their European Parliament.
Sorry,
and
I didn't mean that.
building
I'm
a
not
European
condoning
army.
violence. Sorry. Sorry.
They're building a European army out of this Parliament, and with that, you've got Tony Blair at the front. Now that would work very well for them. Because Tony Blair, of course, is an interventionist. The EU wants to have, I think the quote was a more offensive. No, it was a more. I can't remember the word used. It was along the lines
Prime
of
Minister fighting for Europe.
Yeah.
Which is not what Jean-Claude Juncker is at the moment. He's just some foreigner that we don't really.
Yeah, who is this bloke? I mean, he failed in those Cameron negotiations.
Is a thrice elected prime minister that is fighting for Europe. So he has far more potency as far as the European Parliament is concerned. So
bloody war criminal is what he is, mate. Deserves in a dungeon at the bottom of the Hague.
No, somebody. Oh God!
No, don't go there. No, don't go there. Okay, hold on a sec. We've got a call. This is exciting. This is an exciting time on Daily Brexit. We've got Martin Foskett is calling us. Hey, Martin Foskett is calling on Facebook as opposed to Skype. Martin, are you there? Can you hear me?
Oh, I certainly am, mate. Oh, you still on, are you?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. We're up all night here. We've been on for an hour and a half. I don't know how long we're going to be on.
Hi, Martin.
Hello, mate.
We got Mark Charles here. We got Piers Garnham. We got Rhys Coombs. Martin, what do you think? What's going on? What did you have to say? Not meaning to put you on the spot, but you called me.
A bit. I thought we were finished, but
oh, you thought we'd finished?
yeah, I haven't. You said you was on for another 30 minutes.
Oh, you wanted to talk after the show?
Yeah.
For crying out loud! All right, okay. Look, I'll tell you what. Shall I give you a bell back after the show?
Okay, mate. Yeah, no worries.
But on the other hand, you could tell us what you think of the new leadership in UKIP.
What are you talking about at the moment then?
What do you think of the?
I've got nothing in front of me, so
That's all right.
I haven't seen anything of what you've done.
We were talking about Tony Blair replacing Jean-Claude Juncker as the European, parliamentary head, and whether or not we thought that was a good or bad thing.
My God, that's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. That's impossible.
Well, I think it might. I think it really might. I really do. I think
How on earth could that happen? The guy is the most unpopular person in the Western world, possibly apart from the Bush family people and the Clintons.
There has been a lot of talk about.
I think it might have.
Let's not forget the position that Kinnock holds within the EU, and I believe Blair and Kinnock have always been very close.
And also, Blair has a knack of getting jobs where he's unpopular. He used to be the UK. He used to work for the UK in the Middle East as our.
Yes, he did. As our peace envoy in the bloody Middle East.
Taking the peace envoy.
Yeah,
Taking the bloody peace. I tell you.
I read that. I thought it was like some sort of joke. It's a genuine thing. It's absolutely the most bonkers thing I've ever heard.
He starts the trouble, and then he offers the solution.
That's right.
Well, yeah,
That's
auto
right.
abkeo. It's the old establishment philosophy. You know, you create the problem and then offer the solution. It's you know, we have no idea.
We got the Saudis.
The
The Saudis are in charge. The Saudis are in charge of human rights at the UN. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised that Tony Blair was taking the peace envoy. It's just incredible, isn't it? It really is. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. When I talk to folks who, I suppose, are more kind of like Remain, more establishment kind of leaning type characters, which frankly most people that I know are, which is so frustrating. And they kind of, you know, if you like, put up with what I have to say or whatever, but they don't want to hear. And they put up with all of this. And when it comes down to it, are more interested in the fact that they can get an easy flight from England onto the continent than they are about their own sovereignty. And
people believe what they want to believe, Ollie.
And there is also the denial thing. There's the denial thing. But I mean, I have heard it, to be honest with you, even this weekend from dear people who I love very much, saying it's really convenient for me to be able to not use my passport when I go to certain airports. And
the trouble is, Ollie, is that people, they will only get involved in things that affect their own little bubble.
But it is affecting us, though, Martin.
Certain things.
It's affecting all of us now.
They will get fully behind.
It's affecting all of us. Look at how Schengen has failed and how terrorists are crossing borders to arrange their, you know, blowing people up, going betwixt and between, say, Paris and Barcelona
Ollie,
or
it's
Austria.
It's a bit more complicated than that. I mean, we you know, Tony Blair and George Bush basically falsified evidence to get us back into Iraq in 2003, and we bombed the crap out of Iraq. We killed millions indiscriminately, and then we've gone into Libya, we've gone into Syria, we've gone into, you know, we've gone into everywhere. We've killed and bombed and maimed indiscriminately, and you wonder why people don't like us.
Okay,
you know, I mean,
hold on,
come on,
one sec, Piers,
come on,
one sec,
you know,
one sec. Let me just say, because I don't
radicals within these countries.
Let me just say before you continue. Let me just say I completely understand that there is the other side to that coin. That the only reason that we have terrorists in Europe is because we drum them up. That we've kicked up hornets' nests in places like Iraq and God knows where else. Yes, of course, exactly, I understand that, and also because of unfair trade policy as well. That people, you know, have distinct disadvantages. And therefore, and then, you know, it's no wonder that they want to make a better life.
It's not just that, Ollie. Obviously, we've heard it up here as well. You know, obviously, you think back to the 70s and the time when the BNP started. Yes, there was a lot less followers of the religion of peace here, but there was a lot less imposement upon us. And, you know, there wasn't any of these terrorist attacks at all. The far-right groups like that were put there to stir up the hornet's nest, to get on the streets, to start protesting. And with that, directly, we saw the rise of the extremism of Islam.
Yeah, Islamic fundamentalism is a direct result of what we've done, our policy in the Middle East. It is. I mean,
Wahhabism as well from the Saudis, no?
You know, well, the Saudis are a bunch of, you know,
I mean, it's been drummed up from all over. But then again, the Saudis, you could argue, are CIA agents. I mean, they're basically all Bilderberg globalists.
Well, they are. You know, I mean, they're in league with, you know, Israel and what have you. It's
kind of ironic that they're persecuting Qatar now.
You know, Wahhabism, you know, which is heavily sponsored in the UK. There are madrasas opening up and down the country, preaching this radical version of Islam, which is just nonsense. You know, it's not what Islam is really all about. You know, true Islam is peaceful, but it gets twisted and contorted, as does every faith. You know, religion. I mean, personally, I think organized religion is just a form of insanity. Any religion is a form of insanity. You know, be spiritual, have a relationship with God, but do it in the comfort of your own home, and don't follow some priest or imam or you know whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. You don't need to be part of some organization where you're performing some kind of mad, hysterical, gestural kind of philosophy approach to your faith. Just love. Love is really the only real religion. That is the only real religion, and anything else is a perversion of man.
He's getting all romantic now.
No, I'm not. This is what I genuinely believe.
You're right. I agree with you. Of course, you're right. Carry on.
I just loathe organized religion because it's just indoctrination designed to to separate us from each other. I don't care what color anybody is, or it doesn't matter.
We just need to basically treat people the way we want to be treated
in this world is because of faith.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you, there are people that's pretty hard here. Matthew Atwood says deep down all Muslims are all for the same agenda. There's a sort of an archaic and anachronistic ideology. It depends how you translate.
I think when they go to the mosques in the UK, they are given a certain set of instructions. Breed, have 3 or 4 children because the infidels will only have 1 or 2, and this is the philosophy. You see,
we have to be careful here because
I know. I'm
not trying to be a liberal here, but I mean there are some Muslims and many mosques out there who are brilliant. They're like Christian churches and they preach great things and they're very good. But there are possibly a majority, possibly a minority. I don't know of mosques where what you're saying is absolutely true, and they are preaching that we have to wipe out the infidels. They are preaching that women are worth way less than men. They are preaching that Britain is an evil country and we have to bomb it. But I think that the amount that are preaching that is probably quite small compared to the amount that aren't.
Okay, so there are about 4 million Muslims in the UK.
Yep.
What percentile of that populace do you think are pro-Britain and pro the kind of British way of life, where they will genuinely, I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, I'm being agent provocateur. I know there are Muslims that are fully integrated and sort of.
We're really going around the houses here, I got to say.
Yeah,
but
it's all interesting stuff.
It is. It's fascinating. Carry on. I'm just saying.
I think there was a Channel 4 poll published last year where they said, I can't remember the exact figures, but more or less it said that 23% of Muslims in Britain think that Sharia law should be reintroduced. Sharia law is essentially extreme right, sexist, racist.
Yeah,
authoritarian
we
law,
can't have that.
Where women
it
are
is kind of misogynist, isn't it? That's the problem I have.
But there are already Sharia courts and Sharia councils in the UK.
There's over 60 of them.
Yeah, so we've allowed.
I have to say, I feel similarly about most religions. I personally think
that they're doing it in Austria. It came into effect, I think, last weekend. The banning of
Abrahamic,
facial wear. You see, I think there are, it's a chronically misogynist and chauvinistic culture.
Teresa King says, "Don't forget, you have different sects. Sonny Shear plus a few others." I mean, we have identified. Piers. One sec. We have identified over just the last couple of years or so that there is this strain of Wahhabists, Salafists coming out of Saudi Arabia that really is a problem. That really, these are the kind of mosques that you're talking about, no, Reese, that are the clerics are basically. They're sponsored by Saudi Arabia now.
They fund. I think the figure is they fund over 200 mosques in the UK. That's 200 mosques preaching hate, evil, and racism and sexism in this country.
From a country that has only just allowed women to start driving cars.
I mean, look, my parents live in Chalfont St Peter, which is a genteel little village in the home counties, about 20 miles outside central London. And there was a Muslim father. He had a 30-year-old daughter who was born and brought up in the UK. She was a lawyer. she met and fell in love with a Brit and wanted to marry him, and she went home and told her father that she was in love with a Brit, and he stabbed her to death in the family home because she had brought shame on the family, and now he's in prison. This is insane behavior, insanity, absolute, pure, unbridled insanity. It's barbarism and
it's got absolutely nothing to do with any values that we were brought up with.
Just
basically,
bloody ridiculous. You don't stab your own daughter to death in the kitchen because she wants to marry a Brit.
You shouldn't do that sort of thing. No.
One of my cousins married a Muslim. He converted to Islam, because he had to, in order to marry her, and the wedding was paid for by his father, and the Muslim hierarchy surrounding the wife's side of the family were all saying, right, we don't want any alcohol at the reception, but his father said, well, look, half the guests are going to be Brits, half the guests are going to be Muslim. We'll have alcohol for the British guests and juice and pop for the Muslim guests. So they had the marquee, but of course all the young Muslims live a sort of duplicitous life. They're born and brought up in the UK. They have the life they live beyond the confines of the parental sway, and they all drink. And when they're at home, they pretend to be the good Muslims that they're supposed to be. And I was at this wedding, and one of the young Muslim guests, friend of the bride's, was sort of chomping at the bit to have a glass of wine, and she said, "Will you come outside the marquee with me and have a glass of wine?" So I said, "Yeah, sure. I'll grab a bottle and a couple of glasses." So we went outside, and it was dark, and we were standing in the trees outside the marquee, and everybody was dancing inside. And she had a glass of wine, and she was spotted by members of the Muslim hierarchy at the reception. And as soon as we got back inside, she was accosted and pulled aside and told to leave because she'd had a drink. And this is. I feel sorry for young Muslims in this country that are born here. Yeah, I do. Because they.
I feel sorry for people that are indoctrinated in any way, shape, or form, but particularly
double lives. They live double lives. Yeah. They have English friends and have English lives, and then they have to go home and pretend to be something they're not. And quite frankly, that's just nonsense.
Well, look, okay, so Tony Blair should be taking the Traitors' Gate, says Denny Davis. Theresa King says a lot of countries have now banned the burqa. Frankie Davis, British culture, British law only. Carl Dean Pearson wants to come on the show. Of course you can, mate. Call whenever you like. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Very, very good talker is Carl. Makes some great points. Chris Baxter, come on, guys, and people who have ears, listen. The issue is not about their religion, outfits, and their religious observances. Should a Muslim woman comply with a judge who bids her doff her hijab to ascertain her identity or not? Should a Muslim cab driver drive for a passenger with wine bottles in his hand or not? Should an air hostess during her job serve liquor to passengers or not? Does he not know this point? If not, he was not chosen to be mayor by people of some grey matter in their heads. Chris is obviously replying to somebody else talking about Sadiq Khan there. Marty Kane, the only way to deal with the problem is to draw the lines very clearly, protect our inherent religion of Christianity, and I am an atheist, then deal with anything that crosses those lines appropriately. DDIP Common Sense, he is plugging his political party there, is Marty Kane. And actually, I think Marty's going to be on the show tomorrow. I hope so. I'm looking forward to hearing what he's got to say. I know he's a very controversial figure, which is superb. We like controversial figures. Sam Phipps says they can't even go to the toilet without instructions. Well, I'll tell you what, that's pretty rude,
That's
Sam.
true, actually.
That's pretty rude.
No, but it's true. The great irony of Islam is that it's very similar to Orthodox Judaism. They're both kind of Abrahamic.
That sounds pretty rude. That sounds pretty rude.
No, but it's true. They both have very similar loo protocols. They have to step in with the left foot. They have to they can't wipe their ass with paper. They have to use
Okay,
the
all
left
right, fair enough.
hand.
So they've got a different cultural thing going on. I don't know. I hope they watch the hands. They shut them, deport evil preachers, and reduce the number. Shut them up. I think Frankie Davis is saying deport evil preachers and reduce number of large families being indoctrinated. One thing I have to say that does get my goat a bit is the number of kids that we give child benefit to. Some of these families seem huge and are not maybe chucking in their sort of tax allowance all in all, and they're taking lots and lots of benefits. How can we afford that? At the last budget or two, I remember Osborne came up with an idea, I think it was Osborne, which is surprising because it's about the only thing I would applaud him for having discussed. Maybe it wasn't him, it probably wasn't. Maybe it was Hammond. God, I mean, ditto him, yeah. But this idea was to reduce child benefit to just 2 kids. And after that, you know what? You're on your own, because the bottom line is that some folks don't have any kids at all. And why should they necessarily pay, to have some kids but hey, come on. I mean, some of these families are huge. Our social system surely is broken with the model that we're going along, Mark Child.
Totally. There's about 5.4 million Muslims within the UK at the moment. And it's estimated that 75% of women are claiming benefits and 65% of men are claiming benefits.
The most popular boy's name in Britain last year was whatever derivative of Mohammed, actually. That was the most popular boy's name in the UK.
And Nigel wasn't there once, apparently.
Why would you call a child Nigel, for crying out loud? I mean, come on. Nigel's a dreadful name. I mean,
I don't think I go for either.
Farage, but I mean, but for Nigel's dreadful.
Yeah.
But what the followers of the religion of Islam have done extremely well here is they've played on their human rights, and this is something that really we have to again thank or blame the Germans for. With obviously the atrocities that went on, and the numerous negotiations and peace treaties that were put in place since then. Where we can't even speak freely without the risk of defending someone's human rights, and they've used that to their advantage. I mean, prime example, if you go in most subways now, or even most fast food outlets, they have a large ethnic employment level, especially from the Muslim background. And that's fine, until these
That was the
people
case
get
of the BBC. I spent about 16 years trying to get a job at the BBC or something before I managed to finally get a job at the BBC. And every single application I ever sent to the BBC included an equal opportunities form, which you weren't obliged to fill in, as I recall. But it was kind of like if you didn't know if your application was going to be processed. And it basically asks you all this deal. And the bottom line is that instead of people being chosen to work at the BBC on the basis of merit, they were being chosen to tick politically correct boxes, so that they've got all the ethnic minorities covered or what have you. Which to me is an anathema of what talent and meritocracy should be about. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Well, it's not just the BBC. This is
brilliant
everywhere.
Muslim
this is in our
presenters and
police
stuff. I
service.
love George Ali. What's his name? He's cool. I like that guy.
Once they
I like
got
that
their
guy.
foot in the door at these fast
But that's not
food
the point.
outlets, then look what's happened. They've forced halal meat into these places. They've forced subways to ban any pork products.
That's another political correctness gone mad, isn't it? That everyone now in school they have to eat halal meat because some people basically want to give animals a crueler death. I mean, and we do this in the name of maybe it happened or maybe it didn't, but they
banned it in Denmark, didn't they?
Religion.
I mean, they stopped the processing of sharia or halal and kosher meat in
so
Denmark.
we're killing cows by slitting their throats and letting them bleed dry.
Which is basically the same in kosher and halal meat. Whether it be Judaism or Islam, it's basically the same thing. You know,
it's
Ollie,
bloody cruel.
go back
It's
to your
so
previous
cruel. So yeah. Sorry. I could really go on that. Yeah, Reese, go on.
Going back to your previous point about the BBC, it's not just the BBC that are like that with just employing people of ethnic minorities or favouring them. It's actually on KIP Essential we looked into the police, and on I think it was the Met Police website, they've got a recruitment website where they offer you where they show you what support they've got to employ you, and they've got a assessment support section which they describe saying, "We'll realise you want to be well prepared for your assessment. It's only natural." Saying we're going to support you. But there's a catch to that. You're not allowed to be a white male. They've got support sections for black people, for Muslims, for females, for basically every single group except for white people or males. So you only get this support if you're a black female or another, along the lines of some minority rather than a white male. And it's impossible. They don't have one support option for white males.
Incredible.
And that is what we're finding in the police. It's just awful. And of course, if you go to these support sessions, you're much more likely to get a job because you've got that on your CV and you know what it's like. And it's coming up in every aspect of government, and anyone who gets money from the government, you have to be, or you're much more likely to get the job if you're of any form of minority or someone they feel needs to be more represented, usually black females. And I've got nothing against black females. If they're perfectly capable of doing a job, great, give it to them. But
Who is hooting like that? Who's hooting?
very annoying.
Have you got one of these clown noses or something?
No. I mean, look.
Yeah,
There is a sort of social stigmatism that will and has existed for a long time, because of what we've done in terms of suppression and slavery, and we are guilty of that as a society, and that has caused a social slur that will remain with these people for generations. Therefore, I do feel that bizarrely enough, that some sense of opportunity should be afforded. I'm not saying that we should employ incompetent people, but in my experience, if you give people opportunity and you educate them, then everybody can shine.
I can't agree with that, because if there's a black person who's the best person for the job, give it to them. Not a problem at all.
Of course, absolutely. I agree with that.
Especially in something like the police, where it's so crucial we have the right people doing the work. If there's a white person who happens to be better than a black person, but only marginally, we shouldn't give the job to the black person. The job should go to the person who's best for the job. And if
you're right. You're right. But what they're trying to do is be proportional. They're trying to employ a sort of proportional representation of our society, so that.
I don't see why.
I'm not sure if it is proportional, actually, to be honest. I think that in the case of the BBC, I think that the proportion is skewed against British white people. And I will refer you back to what Greg Dyke, former Director General, said in describing the BBC as hideously white. And there has been a campaign in that organisation, as well as in other organisations, certainly, to shift the balance. And yes, I mean, but I don't know the precise numbers. I don't know the number. I can tell you that the time that I worked there, which is a little while ago now, and it may have changed since a little bit, of course. When I was there, in my department, there was a disproportionate number of Asian folks, but there was a disproportionately few number of black folks. There was only one black guy in my department of about 96 people in London. And there were other people in the department that were black. They were all cleaners. Yeah. So I don't know what that tells you, but that's a demonstration. It was, but the other way it was disproportionate, by the way. In my department, I remember there was a disproportionate number of people, frankly, that were gay. And in the media, there is a bit of a gay mafia too. And you do get these kind of cliques where people recruit their own. And the BBC, where it used to be very much an old boys' club, university and all that, Oxbridge, very Oxbridge, and there still is an element of that. And also there are a disproportionate number of Oxbridge grads at the BBC, because don't get me wrong, there's some clearly very bright heads that come out of Oxbridge. But when you're doing things like producing content, you need all sorts of alternative, sort of mindsets. chiming in and so basically it was disproportionate in various different ways, but there are changing cultures in the BBC, for example, and where it was more Oxbridge, now it's becoming more sort of, if you like, metrosexual, if you like.
I think
anyway.
what you've got to remember is with things like with the media, especially, but in any job, there's a lag between who's employed and what society is like and what employment is like, because people don't leave their job within a year, very rarely. What happens is you work at a company, especially like the BBC, you work there for 10, 15, 20 years. So if the BBC has very few black employees, that's not because their employment is racist now, it's because their employment might have been racist 10, 20 years ago. And what you could look at is there's a big lag. And the way of dealing with that is letting time play on, and within 10, 15 years, you'll be fine. But I think what a lot of people are doing is trying to speed up that process. But as has always been shown, when you try to speed up something to do with proportion, like with race, like when the government tries to intervene with things like this, and when employers try to specialize one group over another, it cannot work. And what you'll end up with is worse employees doing a worse job. And then that's not because I'm racist, but it's because if you employ black people over white people by virtue of their skin color, you're going to get worse employees. That's the entire point of having it. So
there is a sort of social dichotomy going on here, where you have a lot of kids who are born and brought up in the UK, maybe to mixed heritage, who lack a sense of identity. You know, they need to sort of be one thing or the other, and this is the world this is the world that's basically prolificating itself. I mean, ultimately, if mankind is going to survive, we're all going to end up.
Piers, you and I have interviewed, though. For example, maybe I'm taking you down the wrong track here, but you and I have interviewed folks, for example, on Jingly Jangly, the show that morphed into Daily Brexit. One in particular I remember, who very westernized young Muslim girl who came on the show to talk about the refugee crisis, and had a long chat about it. And then we were discussing sort of personal beliefs and stuff. And I asked her about Sharia law, and she couldn't say it, but she didn't say that it was wrong. I asked her, do you think it's wrong? And she just didn't want to answer the question. And I skipped it because she clearly felt very, very uncomfortable about it. And frankly, she was my guest. And
of course
I didn't want her to feel
Of course she did.
But my point is that you mentioned the word dichotomy. I'm just giving you an example to.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true that religion is a huge hurdle for it's so ingrained in people's way of behaving, their culture.
Of whatever religion, it has to be said to a greater.
Well, yeah, but this is what they'll be. But my experience of young Muslims in England, the ones that have been born here, who have grown up here, they have the way they behave with their parents, and then they have the way they behave with their friends, and the two are diametrically opposed. I'm not saying that's indicative of all Muslims, but there is this sort of horrible kind of duality going on. I'm not saying that.
Sorry, guys. Carry on, Piers. That was my fault. Carry on.
It's just I feel for them in a respect, because they want to be fully integrated.
I feel sorry for Muslim women. I really genuinely do.
Why? I mean,
then I feel sorry for
one of my
women of all
parents'
religions.
neighbours stabbed his daughter to death because she wanted to marry a British boy, and she's been
absolutely terrible.
Born and brought up in the UK. She was 30 years old. She was a lawyer. She had a good job. She'd achieved. She was a clever girl, and she fell in love with a Brit. Well, of course, that is more than probable, considering that she was born and brought in the UK and her circumstance. But because she was, going against faith and culture, her father reacted.
Many years ago,
I would say this goes on way more in the UK than people would ever care to imagine.
The FGM is an epidemic, isn't it, in Europe?
The barbarism is off the shelf. It's off the scale. It's so endemic within the culture, and it doesn't get reported in the mainstream media because
Martin Kane points out, guess what, Piers? We have that with the average white family as well. They go out with their mates and act one way and act a totally different way with their parents.
Yeah, no, sure. It does. It's. I'm not being. It's not just an Islamic thing. Of course, we will be away with our friends and away with our parents. But the difference is.
Hold on, Piers, just a sec. Carl Pearson. Just a sec, Piers, chat. Just a sec, my old mate. Carl Pearson has just called and he's bloody noisy, thumping his keypad. So, Carl, duck. God bless you. Yeah, you can chime in a sec. Just listen on for a sec. Sorry, Piers, carry on.
On that note, now Carl's here. I've got to head off. But thank you very much for inviting me on, and it's been brilliant to talk to you all. I'm sure I'll be joining you again very soon.
Reece Coombs, thank you so much for coming.
Take care, Reece.
All the best.
God bless you, Reece. Hey, Reece, thank you so much for what you did on Question Time. Putting cable in this place. That was awesome.
I loved it.
I would like to just say a couple of quick stories, Ollie, and I'll probably have to shoot off myself.
Go on then. Go on.
So going back, quite a few years ago now. I won't disclose how many years, but I used to work at Ford's at Dagenham and was tasked with looking after the whole of the fire system now. And it really shows the sort of thought process of what the ethnic community goes through with regards to white women and white people in general. You couldn't walk anywhere without seeing on the walls, we're going to have babies with your white women and ruin these women so you don't want to have children with them, and once they've had us, that they won't ever come back to the white man, and that sort of thing was absolutely everywhere at Ford's at Dagenham, in the places where everyday people didn't go, like accesses to roofs and stuff like that. But
you're right. This is what they preach in the mosques. This is the philosophy that they are told. They are indoctrinated with. And
Debbie Shaw says, lots of laugh. I worked in Dagenham canteen once upon a time. Sorry, carry on.
I probably saw her, bless her. And then the other thing is that there is definitely a agenda to employ a certain kind of person within Britain now over others, and actually this was a recruitment drive for the right reasons. Probably 8 to 10 years ago, MI5 were recruiting people of a certain height with maybe a darker complexion, so they could fit in. Into the Muslim community because of the obviously increased threat of the rise of Islam, and I know that because I went through the motions.
That was a sensible strategic move in that case, though, wasn't it?
Dude, I know all about that shit as well.
Look, can we just try not to swear on this show? This is a family show, I mean, I know the content is pretty, pretty hardcore, but
nobody
nonetheless.
I do think we've gone off topic a little bit, though.
We've gone way off topic. I'll tell you what, we have actually gone off topic. That's all right. That's okay. We can do that. We can do that.
No, that was it. It was just to say about the. So there can be times when people set a criteria for employment for certain for certainly a good reason, like the MI5 did. But most of the time, the agenda that's put forward for that type of employment is completely wrong and biased.
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, look, at the end of the day...
Hold on a sec. Carl, are you there?
I mean, yeah, I'm here. There's definitely an opinion out there that's been thrown about by many that these
Carl
things
Pearson,
are happening.
up in Scotland.
And I think that there is undeniable evidence that these things are happening now.
What things?
Such as, well... There's so much we're talking about, but everything I couldn't disagree with.
Basically all of the above.
I was just waiting on firing
okay.
it, but I don't. First thing I don't understand is they know exactly where these people are, where the main, should we say, activists for these terrorist organisations are.
Yeah,
they know what they're doing,
and they always seem to be monitoring them, don't they?
Yeah,
whenever there's an atrocity, the passport's there, and also they always seem to be monitoring. The
what
suspect
I don't understand is why we're not dealing with the ones we know straight away. That's a threat, and the first thing that government is elected for is to protect the people, and they're failing to do that by letting these people live within our streets. They are failing their job. They're failing their first and most crucial job to protect the people. There's thousands of jihadis walking among our streets, and they're just allowed to do it. And some of them are even allowed to post their hate videos on social media. I don't understand it. And
dude, it's order ab chaos. Order ab chaos. It's order out of chaos.
Yeah, that's right.
They want chaos.
What are the Romans ever do for us?
They can offer, because when we are traumatized, and we are looking for some kind of response or answer, that's what they provide. Well, this is the way it works. This is the way it's always worked.
We know that systematic change.
Most of the atrocity that the world has to produce is probably like orchestrated. Seriously, this is where we have to jump off the deep end and try and rationalize what really is going on in
Piers
the world.
Here
now.
we go. Oh, this is dangerous. Okay, go on.
No, I'm not going to go off on some mad conspiratorial, thing.
He could do. But
seriously.
We'll do that another time, Piers. We will do that another time. I kind of need a pee. I know. It's all right. Carry on.
Our understanding of reality is so skewed.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah.
This is reality, sorry. I didn't catch that.
What I'm saying is, what we perceive as real isn't.
Well, I was just about to come on to something that kind of relates into that. We know that for factual evidence that there's been a systematic dumbing down of the population. We know that's been going on within our school system.
We know that.
Absolutely. May I just say, we've got
in many different directions.
Go on, Charles.
We've got Cole on. Did anyone see his extremely good appearance on the BBC where he gave Theresa May an absolute dressing down?
Carl Pearson? No, I didn't see that. Excellent. Oh yes, no, I did. Yes, I did. The video. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yes.
Not to her face, but yes.
No,
indeed.
Unfortunately not.
Another time.
Oh, maybe.
Oh.
Yeah, it was extremely well said.
You know what?
Thank
oh,
you.
blimey.
That's very kind.
Oh man, blimey. Oh. I hope we
missed that.
Hold on. Oh, look. Oh no, that's not working either. Oh, I need a pee. I'm gonna have to stop, guys. I'm gonna have to quit this show because I don't know about you, but I need a pee.
You need to go to the loo.
Ollie, I've got to say, you've been a bit
for
inconsiderate. Your fans and the listeners should come first. You might have to start wearing a diaper or
dude. If you've not got a jar, you could just do one in. You should have a vase or something plastic.
Oh, that's better. Hold on. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I couldn't wait any longer. Okay, hold on. No, we're going. That's it. Oh, yes. Okay, so that's it. Yeah, that was Henry's catch was today's show. Oh God, you can't hear me anyway. Yeah, it was Henry's catch.
Well, what I would say on that is Brexit. What a catch Henry is for UKIP, I believe. We'll go forward.
If any of you guys, if you want to come on tomorrow, Tuesday 6 o'clock, we're going to basically continue from where we've left off because I think it's the done thing. I think what I'm going to do is pretty much continue one show to the next, but morph in new guests and maybe do that. I don't know. I'll think about it. If you guys, any of you want to come,
we're certainly better off than someone who was very deceitful and has no integrity.
It would be good to find an email.
That controversial comment from Mark Childs there. I'll ask him about that tomorrow.
Yes, please.
We've had Rhys Coombs, we have Mark Childs, we've had Carl Pearson, I was Ollie Connolly, we have Piers Garnham too.
Pleasure as always, guys, and thank you to all the listeners.
You have been watching. Thank you for sharing. Back tomorrow with whoever is going to join us from this lot, with David Window, with Marty Kane, I think, with George Hellis, I hope. This is quite long, this piece of music.
Enjoyable.
Nighty night. God bless you.
Night,
I'm going to have to cut this. It's nearly over. I'm determined to play the chickens. Oh, there's no chickens in this version.